What's up everyone, Pags here at MEI Studio. This week I'm trying the Mr. Ballin look, and we're going to be looking at a mic that probably deserves to get way more use than it does. A mic that, if it were a person, might be eligible for retirement as it turns 55 years old this year. I'm talking about the Electro-Voice RE20. Before we get started, let's do a mic check. Click on that like button as you say check 1. If that subscribe button isn't already hit, say check 2 as you click that one, and you can say check 3 as you hit the notify button, but never say check 4. That's not allowed. We went through the almost 100-year history of Electro-Voice in our last Mic Locker video, link up top. So I'm not going to be rehashing all of that. Instead, we can kind of dive right into the subject of today's video, the RE20. Released in 1968, the RE20 was developed by Electro-Voice engineer Tom Lininger. It was dubbed the condenser killer, and for good reason. For a dynamic microphone, the mic is very sensitive in the higher frequencies, which give it a sheen that many other dynamic mics just can't get near. In addition, the bottom end of the mic is rich and full but not boomy thanks to the variable distance or variable D technology the mic employs. We'll get into that more in a bit. The mic is big and heavy, all metal, and got a lot going on inside that makes this mic extremely dense. Because of its size, standard mic clips aren't an option for this mic. There are, to my knowledge, 2 standard clips for it, the regular loop style that comes with the mic, and the almost more ridiculous looking than the mic itself, the 309A shock mount. I've seen other third-party shock mounts, however, the issue with some of them is that it blocks off some of the ports on the side of the mic, which can alter the frequency response, and it can also hinder the variable D technology the mic employs to get its signature consistent sound. When the mic was announced, Lou Burrows, lead tech and founding member of Electro-Voice, was quoted as saying, "We could have made it the size of the RE15, but marketing thought it should be the size of a Neumann U67. And so marketing won out, and a star was born." The mic has been used all over the world for countless studio, broadcast, and live sound applications. Its fidelity placed it in front of Stevie Wonder on his hits like Superstition and You Are the Sunshine of My Life. Its ruggedness put it in the hands of just about every serious live sound engineer for kick drum duty since it was released. I can't count the number of stages I've seen it on for kick and bass cab duty. And then there's the broadcast world, which is where this mic's intended audience lay. From Howard Stern to the fictional world of Frasier, the mic is recognized as one of, if not the best broadcast mic in the business. When compared to the competition, it really can't be beat from a technical standpoint. The sensitivity, self-noise, and frequency response are all arguably superior to the SM7b. The fact that the mic exhibits very little proximity effect or off-axis coloration make it an engineer's dream come true. So why don't we see everyone lusting after these for podcasting and streaming? There are a number of reasons. First, cost. Typically, the mic goes for around $450 USD. The SM7b is typically less than this, though if you add in the cost of the obligatory cloud lifter, since no one seems to be able to use this with a quality mic pre, you're going to be around the same price as the RE20. While both mics need a fair amount of gain, the RE20 is marginally better. Next is size. The RE20 is slightly taller than the SM7b. And for someone streaming or podcasting, the mic does take up a lot of real estate, especially if you're using that ridiculous shock mount. Next is aesthetics, and let's face it, the color is just not appealing to anyone. It's the color of a 1980s IBM computer keyboard. It doesn't know whether it wants to be gray or green depending on the light. By comparison, the SM7b is fashionable in its all-black attire. The company of course recognized this and finally started to offer up the mic in all black. Too little too late? The last thing I can think of is mounting. The standard clip works for the mic, but to really make the RE20 work for broadcast, it should be shock mounted. The shock mount adds another $100 onto the price tag, which is another cost deterrent. While the 7B has a yoke mount built into it and its capsule is suspended somewhat, which leads to less handling noise. While the SM7B weighs in around 7 ounces more than the RE20, the weight of the RE20 is all up front, while the 7B is balanced in the center. This would call for a more robust boom arm, which again costs more money. If I were Electro-Voice, and I'm going to doubt anyone of importance is going to listen to me, I'd reissue this. Okay, in black, pack it with a shock mount, $299 price tag, call it a day. This is the little brother of the RE20, the PL10. In 1990, Electro-Voice thought it would be neat to come out with a professional line, PL, get it? Aimed at the studio and music market and release a few new models and simply rebrand others. The RE20 was rebranded as the PL20. It's the same exact mic. The PL10 was supposed to get the same great RE20 sound in a tighter package, and they succeeded. And then stopped making it for some unknown reason. This would kill in the current market. Stay tuned because we're going to be putting up the RE20 against the SM7b, and we're going to let its little brother, the PL10, get some jabs in as well. So let's go a bit further into the variable D tech that we talked about last video. Variable D, or variable distance, is the name given to the technology behind some of Electro-Voice's greatest mics. But what is it, and why should anyone care? Well, as we've talked about a few times now, directional mics, meaning any mic that doesn't have an omni pattern, exhibits what's called proximity effect. Proximity effect is the change in tone as you increase or decrease your proximity to it. So you move closer, it gets boomy. You move further away, it gets thinner sounding. There have been people that have built their entire careers on exploiting this. Looking at you, Bing and Bob Crosby, you silk-voiced sons of While it works for a lot of situations, especially in the studio, for broadcast situations, and this includes podcasts and streaming, the change in tonality as you move to and from the mic can be a problem if you're trying to maintain a consistent sound throughout a broadcast. Imagine the job of the audio engineer if a guest or host is constantly moving up close to the mic and then backing off. While compression can deal with the level changes for the most part, the boom of the proximity effect is going to be rough to compensate for. Let's do a quick example of what I'm talking about here. This is the Shure SM7b from about 6 inches away. I'm going to move my head right, I'm going to move my head left, I'm going to move it up and down. I'm going to move it all around. I'm going to get close to the mic like this, and I'm going to back up a little bit. And what we're listening for is tonal variations in relation to my head from the mic, as I move closer to the mic and further away, as I'm off axis and on axis. This is the Electro-Voice RE20 from about 6 inches away. I'm going to move to the right and to the left. I'm going to move up and down and all around. I'm going to move closer to the mic, and I'm going to move further away from the mic. What we're listening for is the tonal differences between the position of my head and the mic when I move closer and when I move further away, when I'm off axis and when I'm on axis. So now that we can hear the difference between a mic that uses the variable D tech and one that doesn't this technology make sense for broadcast? Why are you still using this? Okay, this next section kind of goes into nerd town, so if you're not that interested in the mechanics of the mic, you can use one of the timestamps in the description to skip over to the next section. If you're still with me and awake, let's dive into what makes this mic work. Some folks think that the variable D is just a bunch of holes in the side of the mic. You know who you are. Variable distance employs the use of interference tubes similar to those found on a shotgun mic. For the RE20, there are 2 of these tubes that run down the sides of the mic behind the ported grills on either side. If you notice, there's these sections of the mic where there are no ports. There's no tubes behind these sections. It's form and function. The sound enters at variable points on the side of the mic, allowing the sound to enter the tube and travel back up to the back side of the diaphragm, which causes phase cancellation of certain frequencies. The tubes are tuned in such a way that the boomy frequencies from what normally would be proximity effect are greatly reduced. Pretty ingenious use of the shotgun mic's principle, but used for a different purpose. Other current mics in EV's lineup use this same tech, such as the 635 line and the RE line. A note to mention, the RE27 and the RE320 don't employ the same design on the capsule and subsequent assembly. This is probably a big reason for the difference in price. The variable D tubes are built into the housing of the capsule cartridge on those 2 mics. One of the first to use the technology was the mic that we looked at in the last video, the 664, link up top. Over the years, other popular mics like the 666, 665, RE10, and RE15 use the technology as well. While not tied directly to the variable D functionality, many notice that it's really hard to pop the mic with a plosive. The reason for this is also based on the design of the mic as a whole and less to do with the diaphragm as many think. The mic has a recessed element, RE, get it? And what this means is the capsule is actually not near the end of this mic. I'm sure another company borrowed this idea when making their broadcast style mic. Anyway, the capsule in this mic is all the way down here. The head basket is essentially filled with foam, which helps to redirect the airflow away from the diaphragm, similar to how a regular pop filter works, just inside the mic. The advantage of this is that you pretty much never have to use a pop filter on an RE20 as long as you know how to use a mic. The mic does have some flaws, especially vintage RE20s. If you're looking to buy vintage for some reason, the foam that lines almost every square inch of the inside of this mic did not age with grace, no exceptions. The foam breaks down into this horrible, sticky, flaky mess that can not only bog down the diaphragm, but also clog up the variable D ports inside the mic, causing the mic to perform poorly. I recently had my vintage unit serviced by Bosch. By the way, yes, the same Bosch company that makes tools and water heaters services EV mics, which included a refoam and a capsule checkup. My capsule was good, but the foam situation was destroying the functionality of the mic. And since I wasn't 100% sure that it wasn't the capsule, I figured let them deal with the mess. If it's only the foam, fine with that. I've linked to a couple of sites down below to show the tear down and mess one has to deal with in refoaming an RE20. I'll probably be doing a video on refoaming the PL10 in an upcoming bench tips video. That mic is at worst 33 years old and the foam is not in great shape. Also, I'm going to link down below and up top here to a video of a great guy I had the pleasure of meeting on the road years ago, Dave Ratt. One hell of a live sound guy. If you've ever been to a Chili Peppers concert, you may have experienced his work. Dave did a 3-part series on the RE20 and even fixes another problem that can occur with the mic, the dreaded baby rattle. I'll let Dave explain what's going on with that issue in his video, as he provides a great example of what it is and how it can be fixed. Let's just say some parts can come loose that are next to impossible to get at without destroying the mic, but Dave being Dave, he found a way to fix it. For studio and live sound use, the variable D tech comes in handy, particularly on low-pitched instruments like kick and bass guitar. You can get these mics close to the source without the bottom end completely overloading the input with rumble. You can capture the tone of a kick without the capsule imparting extra boominess. This is particularly useful on jazz sessions where the drummer may tune the kick to fit the song and you want to capture that nuance. Same thing with bass. The bottom end won't drown out the upper and mid harmonics, leaving nice crisp sound that's a lot easier to deal with at front of house or in post in the studio. These mics are a favorite of mine for miking percussion like congas, cajon, and djembe. It's nothing short of amazing on trombone and bari sax. We've used it on the usual suspects, bass and kick, and of course vocals. For folks that are into metal, you can pretty much scream and shout into this mic and never clip the diaphragm, but it's not going to be forgiving on the top end. There have been advances to the mic over the years, which EV has given different designations to. The RE320, a less expensive variant, and the RE27ND that has neodymium magnets. In an attempt at making the microphone more visually appealing, Electro-Voice released a version in black as opposed to that sickly grayish-green color they normally are. But at its core, the current RE20 has changed very little, and why should it? The mic is pretty near perfect for what its intended purpose is. Now, let's take a few minutes to put up the RE20, PL10, and SM7b against each other in some studio situations and see where things stand. This is the Electro-Voice RE20 cardioid dynamic microphone from 6 inches away. This is the RE20 when I get close up to the microphone. This is the RE20 at 0 degrees on axis. This is the RE20 at 90 degrees off axis. The RE20 at 180 degrees off axis. The RE20 back at 90 degrees off axis. And the RE20 at 0 degrees on axis. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Simple Simon said something stupid. Simple Simon said something stupid. This is the Shure SM7b cardioid dynamic microphone from 6 inches away. This is the Shure SM7b right up on the mic. This is the Shure SM7b 0 degrees on axis. The 7B from 90 degrees off axis. The 7B 180 degrees off axis. The 7B 90 degrees off axis. And the 7B back at 0 degrees on axis. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Simple Simon said something stupid. Simple Simon said something stupid. This is the Electro-Voice PL10 cardioid dynamic microphone from 6 inches away. This is the PL10 when I get right close up to the microphone. This is the PL10 from 0 degrees on axis. The PL10 90 degrees off axis, the PL10 180 degrees off axis, the PL10 90 degrees off axis, and the PL10 back to 0 degrees on axis. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Simple Simon said something stupid. Simple Simon said something stupid. I think perhaps it's time to do away with the practice of not giving my opinion at the end of these videos. I'm usually more interested in what others seem to think of it. After all, I'm just an audio engineer that uses these mics for tons of different things, and as I tell everyone that asks, different situation, different mic. I don't play favorites, and whatever complements whatever it is I'm recording is what gets hired for the job. But what works for one doesn't always work for all. In fact, I've yet to run into a mic that is perfect for every situation. So, my thoughts? I freaking love this thing. This little baby. Seriously, if anyone from RE watches this video, please reissue these. I want to start an RE20 family. I might even get a 320 or 27 to play the part of one of the parents. I will say I have used and honestly do not like the 320 or the 27. The top end is just not right on those mics to me. They're not unusable, I just honestly think the RE20 is just way more rounded overall. I rarely put a dynamic mic up for vocals unless the situation really calls for it. Metal is probably one of the only times I'll put up the RE20 or the 7B as a vocal mic. The singer from my old band works brilliantly with an SM7b on screaming vocals, and I still record him for his new projects with it. The 7B mellows out the highs, which complements his particular voice. The RE20 captures that upper range a little too well for his voice, but if I were doing something a little more funky, where I had a really dynamic vocalist, I might put up the RE20, just like they did for Stevie Wonder. At the moment, the RE20 is my go-to for bass cab when miking bass, and sometimes the floor tom. It's the mic I use for low percussion, as I said earlier, and low brass. Higher brass, I tend to go with a ribbon mic like the KU5A from AEA or even the Royer 121. If I were to do a podcast, the RE20 by far, no questions, would be the mic I would use and have the guests use as well. They're just so forgiving with proximity and off-axis color. Just run the mic through a nice transparent compressor and you're pretty much good to go. I probably wouldn't even have to monitor the mics. I really want to know what you thought though. Did you like the baby as much as I did? Did you think the RE20 outperformed the 7B? Did you get this far into the video and wonder, where the hell is that bit about winning that AKG P120 mic? Do you have no idea what the last sentence was referring to? Check out our last bench tips video. This is our 20th mic locker video doing a review of the RE20, and we're going to be giving away a P120. That's right, this guy over here. Our next video will contain a link card hidden somewhere randomly. This link will show you how to sign up to win. So let's discuss in the comments. As always, if you've gotten anything from today's video, hit that like and subscribe button. It'll really help us out. If you're interested in studio mics and other things audio related, hit that notify button so you'll be notified when we put up a new video. Well, that's it for this time. This is Pags, signing off.